So welcome back again. Now we're having a session which is the most anticipated topic. It's about THIMUN procedure. Nazlı, Senay, ÖZBİLGE will explain us. Even in the opening ceremony, there was a question about what are the differences between Harvard and THIMUN, and now it's time to get their answer. Nazlı, Senay, ÖZBİLGE will explain it. She's a senior in Ankara Atatürk High School. She has been actively participating in Model United Nations conferences since 2016. She has participated in many prestigious conferences as a delegate, committee director, and academic team member. She has served as a president of Model United Nations Club of Ankara Atatürk High School in 2019, and she has been re-elected to be president of organization in 2020. She also served as a Secretary General of MUN 2019, which has been officially affiliated by United Nations Association. She has been accepted MUNTR 2019 as the only high school student committee director. Apart from her Model United Nations career, she also is an active member of European Youth Parliament Turkey, and she has been elected to represent AEP Turkey in the 91st International Session of the European Youth Parliament in Valencia, Spain. She believes that competence in the rules of procedure and academic writing are the key factors which lead MUN participants to success. So, Ms. ÖZBİLGE, stage is yours.
Well, hello everyone. Welcome you all first. I hope you had a great day and great sessions. Let me share my screen with you so that you can also see the presentation. Okay, let's get started then. As you all know, today we're going to discuss two different MUN procedures. One of them is Harvard Rules of Procedure and the other one is THIMUN Rules of Procedure. So I would like to ask you a question before we begin. Is there anyone between you who attended both Harvard conference and a THIMUN conference? Is there anyone who attended both of them? You can, for example, simply type A to chat.
Yes, there is one person.
Okay.
She's raising hand.
I cannot see her name. Could you please tell me her name?
Edith. Can you please raise your hand again?
Okay.
Edith,
you can turn on your microphone and share your experiences with us. What were the basic differences that you saw?
Actually, my first MUN was THIMUN, and I was prepared for Harvard when I got there. And also, I was in Economic and Social Council, which is has super different procedure. Like THIMUN is a little bit of you have lobbying more and write resolution or clauses. In Harvard, you have more debate, but this is only my experience.
Okay, thank you, Elif. You can now turn off your microphone. Well, what Elif said is actually true. THIMUN has more lobbying, and maybe we can say Harvard has more debate, but let's have a look and learn by ourselves. So basically, there is one thing that we have to make clear. What is THIMUN? Because there are two different things that you can think of when you hear the word THIMUN. One of them is, of course, the procedure, as you see here. It's a rules of procedure, just like the Harvard Rules of Procedure. And the other one is the THIMUN Foundation, the leading organization. So THIMUN Foundation is just like, you know, an organization, an MUN group, but they're an official foundation, and they actually started THIMUN procedures. So when MUN first started in 1945, I guess, in Harvard, there was just the Harvard procedure, but then in Europe, THIMUN Foundation was founded, and they started the THIMUN procedure as well. So the THIMUN Foundation has three main conferences itself. We're going to see them in a minute. But the foundation also affiliates conferences, which means that if a conference is affiliated by the THIMUN Foundation, you can be sure that they apply the right THIMUN procedure, and they're a really prestigious conference because the affiliation demands of the foundation are really high. So if you want to organize a THIMUN conference and you want to be affiliated, you need to work really hard. And as far as I know, your conference has to be 5 years old in order to be affiliated, but you can just enter their website. They have a great website on Google, and they have all the information regarding the affiliation and anything else you might wonder. You might visit the website of THIMUN Foundation. And here I got this list from their website, actually. You can see the THIMUN affiliated conferences in Turkey. However, I must draw a note here. This list was from 2019, so it might not be accurate right now. As you know, there is this situation with COVID-19 and the quarantine, so probably they're kind of black as well, just like we are. But here you can see we have MUN, MFI, and MUN. Actually, this is an MUN held in French, and I think like this MUN with the same name is held in many other countries all around the world. So you can give it a check if you're interested in an MUN held in French. We have THIMUN, we have UNESCO, which is actually held in Ankara. And lastly, we have Robert College International Model United Nations. These conferences are officially affiliated by THIMUN. Let's move on. So what is the difference between a THIMUN conference and an affiliated conference? That's the thing I just mentioned. So THIMUN flagship conferences are officially recognized by the THIMUN Foundation, officially organized by the THIMUN Foundation, excuse me. There are 4 official conferences worldwide. So these conferences are not affiliated, but directly organized by the foundation, and they're considered to be like a really prestigious MUN conferences all around the world. The main one is the first one, actually. You see it here. It's held in the Netherlands, and then there is a mini version of that conference, and they also hold conferences in Singapore and Qatar. And as you know, a THIMUN affiliated conference is a conference that THIMUN likes, basically. So let's look at the differences between the Harvard procedure and the THIMUN procedure. Before we begin, let me inform you that there are many, many differences. Some of them are really detailed. And one day, if you're maybe planning to chair in a THIMUN conference, you need to learn all the rules in a very detailed way in the rules of procedure. But today we're going to explain the very basic main differences, since we have like 15 minutes. So let's get started. In Harvard procedure, the conference, as some of you maybe knows, starts with a standard committee session. So basically, you just go to your committee, your chairperson starts the committee, maybe you just give an opening speech, or you start the debate with a moderated caucus, or by setting the agenda. However, in THIMUN, the conference starts with a lobbying session, just like Elif mentioned. So what is lobbying? That's what we need to learn. The lobbying session is basically the same as an unmoderated caucus and usually lasts a day long. So on the first day of a THIMUN conference or a THIMUN affiliated conference, you have a day full of lobbying, which is basically like an unmoderated caucus. During the lobbying, delegates gather to form their draft resolutions. So in THIMUN, you form your draft resolutions on the first day of the conference. And in some conferences, all delegates may even be expected to write a draft resolution by themselves prior to the conference. So if you're going to attend a THIMUN conference, you need to make sure, maybe by emailing to the organization team, whether they ask you to write a draft resolution by yourself before the conference. Because some conferences ask you to do that, and some conferences just want the delegates to prepare the resolutions during the lobbying day, which is the first day of the conference. So we have another difference. In Harvard procedure, delegates discuss the agenda item to write a draft resolution. In THIMUN, delegates discuss the merits of the draft resolutions and possible amendments. So this is very normal. as you can think of. Basically, since you start the conference by writing a draft resolution or maybe multiple draft resolutions, in the upcoming days of the conference, you present the written draft resolutions, you discuss upon them, and you propose amendments. The word amendment, maybe you might be unfamiliar with it. Amendment means basically a change. For example, there is a clause in the draft resolution and you want it to be changed or struck out or to be somehow different. So you basically propose a change, an amendment. So let's have a look at what actually happens during the sessions. After the lobbying days, the sessions in a THIMUN conference are always moderated by the student officer. So student officer means a chairperson in THIMUN. However, there is a little different. In most of the THIMUN conferences, instead of having an academic team member to write the study guides, the student officer prepares the study guides and the student officer also rules the committee. So they're like both a chairperson and an academic team member. Is that okay? Any questions regarding that? If you have any questions, you can write them on the chat. So let's move on. The main submitter of each draft resolution presents the draft and delegates deliver speeches in favor and against the draft. Most of the time, delegates discuss upon possible amendments. So basically, with some delegates, you formed a group and you prepared the draft resolution. And during the sessions, you present your resolution, you just discuss upon that resolution, and some other resolutions may be discussed about other members of your committee. And you might propose amendments or other delegates might propose amendments to your draft resolution as well. So in Harvard procedure, chairpersons and academic team members are responsible for editing the submitted resolutions. As you all know, in Harvard, when you submit your resolution, the chairperson, your USG, maybe your academic assistant, they check the resolution for spelling mistake or the mistakes regarding the content of the resolution. However, in THIMUN, the approval panel is responsible for editing the submitted resolutions. So in THIMUN, there is a completely different group of people in order to edit the resolutions, which is called the approval panel. So let's have a look at what an approval panel actually is. In contrast with the Harvard Rules of Procedure, in THIMUN, editing grammar and spelling mistakes is the responsibility of the approval panel, which is mostly comprised of teachers. So THIMUN conferences are generally, most of the time attended by high school students. So THIMUNs are usually high school conferences. And in these THIMUN conferences, their teachers, the teachers of the students and maybe the teachers of the organizers, they gather and form a panel called the approval panel. And this panel edits all the grammar and spelling mistakes, which are actually called procedural amendments in the rules of procedure, of all the submitted resolutions from all the committees. And student officers usually help the delegates regarding the substantive matters. And substantive matter means a matter regarding the content of the resolution, draft resolution. Any questions? Okay, let's move on. In Harvard procedure, draft resolutions are presented and voted upon in the committees. In THIMUN, draft resolutions are presented and voted upon in the General Assembly plenary session. So from my point of view, that's the biggest difference between a Harvard conference and a THIMUN conference. And in order to be able to learn that difference, we need to learn what a General Assembly plenary session is. And this is usually abbreviated as the GA. So let's have a look at it. In contrast with the Harvard Rules of Procedure, in THIMUN, delegates from all GA committees get together. For example, let's assume that there's Committee 1, Committee 2, Committee 3. They all had their debates, they all voted upon their proposed draft resolutions, and they all picked a resolution. So on the usually last day or the last 2 days of the conference, these committees gather in a huge conference hall and they just discuss upon the resolutions that the other committees prepared. Usually on the last day or the last 2 days of the conference, to present their draft resolutions and discuss about other draft resolutions presented by other committees, delegates gather in a huge conference room. So basically you present your resolutions, other delegates comment on your resolution, maybe positive or negative comments. They might also propose amendments to your resolution, and you might do the same for the draft resolutions presented by other committees. And all draft resolutions are also voted upon during the General Assembly. So in THIMUN, all the delegates in the General Assembly committees vote for each other's draft resolutions. So if you have a draft resolution, that means that it cannot pass only the delegates in your committee voting upon it. All the delegates, all the other delegates in all the other GA committees has to vote upon it in order the draft resolution to pass or to fail. Is that clear? I think you have no questions so far, but because I'm sharing the screen, I'm not able to see like the full screen of the Zoom application. So if I'm missing something, a question or something, please simply write it on the chat so that I will get the notification.
There are a few questions, but not really related to that point. Like you can answer it at the end of the presentation, I guess.
Okay, that's perfect. So there is another very important difference between a Harvard and a THIMUN conference. In THIMUN, there are youth assemblies. So what is a youth assembly? In THIMUN, there are some committees in which students represent themselves rather than representing countries. So basically you become just a 16 years old, 17 years old person yourself, instead of representing a country or an historical character. These committees are called youth assemblies, and students usually discuss about the problems they face in their local communities instead of simulating the UN. So in most of these committees, instead of like talking about the world issues like hunger or maybe something, you discuss about the topics that interest the youth. For example, unemployment could be a great topic for a youth assembly. As I said, in THIMUN, there are youth assemblies, and I do not know if there's anyone participating or interested in European Youth Parliament, EYP, but the concept of EYP and these youth assemblies in THIMUN are really similar. So if you're interested in that, I think it's a great activity. You should definitely give it a check. I can guarantee that you will like it. So let's see which one is the best for you, THIMUN or Harvard. So basically here, it's not possible for someone to just tell you, well, Harvard is better, THIMUN is better. I cannot say that. No one can say that because it depends on the participant. But I have a few comments on THIMUN conferences and Harvard conferences, and I would like to share them with you so that they can be a reference for you. From my point of view, a THIMUN conference, but I mean a real THIMUN conference organized by the THIMUN Foundation, you saw the like 4 conferences, or maybe an affiliated one if it has a really good quality, is a more accurate simulation of the United Nations from my point of view. Because in the United Nations, just like in THIMUN, there is the General Assembly, and the procedure is more similar to the United Nations. So if you want to like express that sense of General Assembly, which I really like, I think you should definitely give a try to a THIMUN conference. On the other hand, I find the Harvard model of first debating and then writing resolutions a bit more effective in order a delegate to improve himself or herself. But there is this backup in Harvard from my point of view. When you try to write a resolution in a Harvard conference, you usually have to finish it in such a limited amount of time. You have 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and something in an unmoderated caucus. The maximum time that can be allocated in an unmoderated caucus is usually 20. So you just have to ask for extensions and you have to rush a lot. So most of the time in Harvard conferences, the final resolutions are kind of problematic. So we usually get a lot of things to amend or change, but since we have time issues, we just have to skip the amendment part. So we just get a resolution that is not perfect from my point of view, or let's not say perfect, but let's say not that effective. However, in THIMUN, you have more time for resolutions, so it's better. You have more time to work upon them. So I think that's an advantage of THIMUN. So I will leave it here because, as I said, there is no way of saying THIMUN or Harvard is better, but these are my personal thoughts about both procedures. And if you have now any questions, I might briefly answer them.
Yeah, there are two questions. First one is, could you please also explain moderated and unmoderated caucuses?
Well, basically, a moderated caucus is a caucus that the chairperson or the student officer rules the session. So you have to raise your placard in order to speak. You have to write message papers to other delegates in order to tell them something. However, in an unmoderated caucus, you can basically, get up, walk around the room, talk to the other delegates, work upon something all together as a group without the permission of the chairperson or the student officer. So you're basically free in an unmoderated caucus.
Which one is harder, organizing a THIMUN or Harvard conference?
Well, actually, that depends on your organization team, but there is a little problem with THIMUN. Since General Assembly committees need to gather in a really huge conference hall because they're all crowded committees, you need to find a room like that. So if you don't have the access to a really, huge conference hall, like the ones we usually have the opening ceremonies and the closing ceremonies for like more than one day, if you do not have the access to such a room for more than one day, you might consider to organize a Harvard procedure in which you have your committees in like smaller rooms compared to a General Assembly.
So thank you very much for your informative presentation and also for your answers. So
that was my pleasure. Thank you.
So hope to see you in the next session.
Okay, have a great day and great sessions. Thank you. Bye-bye.